Hey Flutes, my name is Sarah and I'm a flute teacher based in New Jersey. And today I will be answering a question that I get all the time, which is how do I get rid of airiness in my sound? Help! Okay, I will try to help you with this. I have been playing the flute for about 31 years now, and I've gone through many ups and downs in my playing. As a beginner, I felt that my fingers were my strength and my tone was my weakness. And I've also had times where I felt the exact opposite. So, in the beginning of my flute studies, I had a hard time getting a really focused sound. I was someone that tended to blow a lot of air, and I always felt that more air and harder air, faster air was always the answer. But over the years, I learned that it's all about the embouchure. So, what is a flute embouchure anyway? Well, it's comprised of the entire area around the mouth, and what it does is it helps shape the apparatus through which you blow air out of. And then in the middle of the embouchure is your aperture, which is the opening of the lips. So we have the ability to control both the shape and the size of the aperture, as well as the positioning of the embouchure. Now, another term that we need to learn is embouchure hole, which is the hole on the lip plate. So depending on what range we're playing in, low, middle, or high, we need to have a certain amount of lip coverage over the embouchure hole. Okay, so those are just some basics that I wanted to lay down first before I go any further. Now, what I find is the most common reason for an airy sound on the flute is the aperture being too big. We need to use a very small opening of the lips in order to focus the air precisely into the flute. You see, what we're trying to do is split our air column, which is the entire massive air that we're trying to blow into the flute. We're trying to aim our air column so that it splits in half against the strike edge of the flute. What is the strike edge? Well, if you look into the embouchure hole of the flute and you look at the far end, so the end away from you, and you notice how the wall kind of dips down, well, the bottom of that wall where it drops off is called the strike edge, and we're trying to aim our air directly at that. So if you hold your flute and look down, you'll see that, wow, I really need to blow my air downwards in order to split the air in half. And we're not going to be able to hit that spot precisely without a very small aperture. Now, I find that a lot of students have trouble controlling their aperture and the size of the aperture and the shape of it. And it really takes a lot of strength in the muscles in the very center of your lip. So just to give you a sense of what muscles are used to squeeze the aperture into a smaller size, let's just try buzzing our lips for a second, as if we are trumpet players, but maybe not very good ones. So basically we're going to blow a raspberry. Now, I've never played the trumpet before, so I'm just assuming that's a really bad buzz, but it'll work for what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to feel the buzzing in between our lips. In order to create that sound, I have to squeeze my lips closer to each other. So we're using those muscles to contract the lips together. Now, you never want the embouchure to be very tight. And usually what causes tightness in the embouchure is when we're using our larger muscles around our face and we're holding them in position. That's not what we want at all. We want our embouchure to be very flexible and free. So the way to get that more relaxed embouchure that's flexible is to have more strength in the center. So start by buzzing your lips. And another thing that you can do to help with that is to practice harmonics. Harmonics are when you start with a low note fingering. So, for example, low C would be a perfect one to use. And by controlling your aperture size, you can get out various harmonics. So let me just demonstrate what that would sound like. So you can start off with that low C fingering, and with a combination of squeezing your aperture and moving your lower lip forward so that you're covering more of the embouchure hole, you can get out those higher harmonics. So that's just a really brief explanation, but that's essentially how you play harmonics. I'll probably go into more detail in a future video. Okay, now another reason why you might have an airy tone could be a combination of having the big aperture and on top of that blowing too much air. So when we blow an excessive amount of air through a very large opening, we get a very spread sound. It might sound something like this. So what I just did was a very beginner type sound. I'm getting the notes out. I have the basic idea of an embouchure, but just no control over it whatsoever. So again, this is really a double problem, the big aperture and just a lot of air. Now the third reason I'm going to talk about today that might be causing your airy sound is that you have a smiley embouchure. And I know that a lot of band teachers over the years have taught their flute players to smile in order to create a flute embouchure. Hopefully by now a lot less of them are teaching that because of videos like this, but it still happens. And worst case scenario is someone's been playing the flute for 10 plus years and still has a smiley embouchure. It can be very tough to correct. But the problem with the smiley embouchure is that the sides of the lips are being pulled away from the lip plate. And by pulling away, we create a lot of leakage. So it might sound something like this. Now it's going to sound just a little bit better than the last possible embouchure with the really big aperture, but it's never gonna get any better sounding than that because you don't have any flex here at the sides of your lips, and you're just gonna end up blowing harder in order to get higher notes, which is a big problem later down the road. So how do we get rid of a smiley embouchure? Well, I wouldn't necessarily suggest a full-on frown, but at least try to neutralize where you're at. So if you're pulling back, try to just bring the corners more forward. We're just trying to get everything moved into a forward position so that you have more lip surface area touching the lip plate. You really want to bury the lip plate into your lip. Rather than a fourth possible reason that your sound is airy could be the angle of your air. Remember how I said that the strike edge is really low in the embouchure hole? Well, we need to aim our air in a downward angle in order to get there. So I always tell my beginning students to blow to their left elbow. It's something that one of my teachers taught me and it really stuck. And the simplest way to do that is to have a teeny tiny tuck of your chin. It's not going to feel like much. Like you definitely don't want to cut off your throat by having your chin too low. That's also going to create some tension in your neck. You're basically just going from a more upright position like this to just the tiniest tuck. And I don't even know if you guys noticed how small of a tuck that is. So here's my head like straight up, and that's more of my flute playing position. Very subtle difference, but when it comes to tone, oh my goodness, does it make a difference? So here's my tone with my chin too high. And now I'm going to tuck my head slightly. Makes a world of difference, let me tell you. So try that if you haven't already, and you might be pleasantly surprised. Okay, now the fifth tip I have for you to get rid of airiness in your sound is to think about the angle of your head and the angle of your flute. And this goes back to getting rid of leakage. What we want is a 90-degree angle between our embouchure, or you could think of it as your nose, and the flute. So if your head is like straight up and down, then your flute is going to have to be pretty much parallel to the ground. Now the problem with that is that your arms will get super tired after a while. So I find that it's much better if your head is slightly tilted to the right, and then you can relax your flute angle. So if I hold my flute too high with this angled head position, it's already a bit airier. And if it's too low, it gets super airy again. So take a look in the mirror and fix those flute angles, fix your head angle. So let me know in the comments if those tips help, and if you could think of any others that I left out. Hopefully not. But literally the only other thing I could think of right now is like if your flute needs to be repaired. But I just didn't feel like adding that in the list. But yeah, make sure your flute's working. So if you like what you saw today, please be sure to hit like and subscribe. And if you'd like to get my free weekly newsletter, find me on Substack as Hey Flutes. You can also become a paid subscriber for only $6 a month. Not only does this support me as a small flute creator, but it will also give you access to the special members-only subscribers chat. And there you can ask me all kinds of questions. You can even post videos of yourself playing. So hey, if you want feedback, I could give you feedback there. And you'll get the really in-depth articles that I post every now and then, as well as videos of me playing. I mean, you could even send me playing requests. Honestly, I don't care. Like, I will do anything for my paid subscribers. So thank you guys all so much. I'll see you next time. Happy practicing.